Hi everybody, and welcome back to Mother-in-Law Stories. You know the drill, so let's not waste any time on introductions and get started with the first story. I got married last June, and my husband's mother tried very hard to insert herself into the wedding planning. She invited herself to the florist and then thought she would have the final say about what we were getting. I wanted lilies, simple and elegant. She wanted orange blossoms and herbs and lots of floofy things. Well, that was the first time I put my foot down. Things escalated to her deciding that she should dictate what flower girls and ring bearers wore. Well, my mother was making the dresses for the girls, 3, and we had instructed the parents of the ring bearers to go and get tuxedos for the kids, which we would pay for. Anyway, I got my way in the end because my husband stood up for me and told me that I had to stand up for myself as well. Then she decided that my dear husband's father should not have to rent a tux and that they would buy him a sport coat instead. That was about the final straw. I called them and gave them a very hard time because in the first place, they gave dear husband a hard time because we wanted to have a casual wedding. When we couldn't find a venue and things started to take on a more formal feel, they were the ones who criticized dear husband for not wanting to wear the tux, tradition and all that. Then they decide that the father of the groom doesn't have to get dressed up. I about had a cow. They told me this right before we were leaving to go camping for a weekend, and all I could think of the whole weekend was that they had some nerve. As soon as we got back, I called them and told them that not only would they be renting a tux, but that they would be expected to A, B, and C, and pretend that they enjoyed it. It was a hard conversation to have because I had never really laid it out for them before. You see, when mother-in-law got married, her mother and mother-in-law planned everything, so she thought that she would get to plan mine, even though I'm almost 30. But she didn't want to pay for anything. Then we get our wedding pictures. Our photographer gave us a thumb drive with low-res pictures to share or post and high-res pictures to print the ones we wanted, on top of the ones she used for a wedding album she made. I brought the album and the low-res pictures to my in-laws for Thanksgiving, and she wanted to have enlargements made. So she told me to leave the high-res images with her and she would give them back to me sometime. Well, I had already planned to do enlargements for all family members to give out as holiday gifts. So I simply told her that I was way ahead of her and that I couldn't leave them with her because they were my only copy. When she got the photos as a Christmas gift, all she had to say was, "I wouldn't have chosen these." I simply responded that I could give her a copy of the low-res pictures, she could then make a list of all the photos she wants, write me a check, and I would take care of them. That wasn't good enough for her, and she tried to convince me to leave my only high-res copy there with her. I refused because I don't trust her at all and gave her a copy of the low-res pictures. Sometime in January, she finally realized that I wasn't going to bend to her wishes. She made a list of the photos she wanted and gave it to me. I have yet to receive a check. Money's tight right now with me and dear husband because of what's going on, so I have yet to order her photos. It's a constant struggle. Anyway, to make a long story short, whenever I think mother-in-law or father-in-law are going to be over the line, I call them out on it. Because of that, I don't get physically ill worrying about what's going to happen next. I used to. I don't sit and think, if she says X, I'll say Y. I have empowered myself to be able to deal with whatever is thrown at me. I am not saying everything's hunky-dory. I still get angry and frustrated, but I don't bottle it up anymore. Well, congratulations to OP. She can definitely stand up to her mother-in-law and is not taking any of her crap. Hopefully at some point, mother-in-law might change her ways and become a little bit more respectful of boundaries. But in the case that she doesn't, OP and her husband certainly have the spine to put her in her place. Alright, now let's continue and move on to the next story. To explain my mother-in-law is almost impossible. She's without a doubt a controlling woman. She actually said out loud, "I think I'm losing control of the family." Our problems started when I was just engaged to my dear husband. He was in the military and she found out by opening his phone bill that at the time he had to have forwarded to his home of record that he had made several calls to me. That is yet another problem that she has, opening other people's mail. Well, she threw a fit. I hadn't met her at this point and she called me and started quizzing me on who I was and why was her son calling me so much. I was shocked for a moment without knowing what to say. I said hello and told her I was her son's girlfriend, and her response was simply hanging up on me. Who does that? After 8 long months, he came home and we did go up and visit her so that I could meet her in person before the wedding. Well, after she searched through our luggage to see where we purchased our clothes from, she asked, "Why are you both wearing brand name jeans?" She continued by saying, "They are too expensive. You shouldn't spend money on jeans like that. That's what department stores are for." This from a person that only shops at the top brand name stores. She made nasty comments about my appearance. I'm just under 6 feet, dear husband is 6'5", and critiqued every single move I made. Both dear husband and I decided it was time to cut the visit short. We thought that maybe she was just a little stressed and things would get better. They didn't. Then our wedding came and everything seemed fine until after dear husband and I were alone that night and were a little tipsy. He started telling me that right before the wedding, she was begging him to not go through with it. There was no way I was gonna let her ruin my wedding night, so I didn't say a lot. The next morning, the phone rang at 6 a.m. and I foolishly answered it. It was my mother-in-law, and she said, "What are you doing?" Let's see. It's 6 a.m. and we didn't go to sleep until 5 a.m. What did she think we're doing? I just handed the phone to my brand new dear husband and didn't say a word. Do you want to know why she called? It was to see if he still wanted to be married. Thank God he promptly hung up on her. Thankfully, shortly after that, we were sent overseas for 6 glorious family-free years. They didn't call or write much, so I truly thought we had missed the bullet. But of course, when we returned to the States, we found out what we had been missing. Mother-in-law had successfully run off one of my sister-in-laws, was creating problems for another, and had been such a hag to the third sister-in-law that she currently was not speaking to her husband. When dear husband said that he wanted to go to her home to pick up some of the stuff that we had stored in their garage, I didn't really want to go, but I didn't have much of a choice. So we went for a visit. Needless to say, she searched through our luggage again, saved 6 years of old mail that for some reason wasn't forwarded that she opened. And she had sold all of our things. Oh my God. To top that off, she wasn't sorry for selling them. She never mentioned it before we arrived and said she wasn't going to, and didn't, give us the money she had gained. Needless to say, things have been pretty strained after that and a gazillion other things she's said and done. For the past 8 years, I have tried to be nice to her and just say to myself, that you can't change a crazy person. When I asked her on the phone, "How's your garden?" she automatically called anyone who would listen to her and said, "She actually said I was a bad person." Huh? I was just asking about her garden, lol. Well, after this past Christmas, I've just had it. All these years, she has told me and anyone else who would listen that I'm a floozy, a gold digger, the person who has ruined her son, her life, and her health, and I've basically taken it. Now, I've had it. On Christmas Day, we waited all day for his family to call. He has a big family, so they usually all get together at one house and then they call us. Thankfully, we don't visit because we live too far away. So, we waited, and Christmas came and went, and there was no call from anyone. It was odd, but we figured that maybe they were just busy. A few days after Christmas, mother-in-law called dear husband. When he asked why she didn't call for Christmas, she said, "Well, I assumed you were working and there's no one else I wanted to talk to." Oh my God. First of all, She could have called and spoken to her grandchildren. They are in their teens and can form words now. But that just did it for me. I finally told my dear husband that some people are just bad for you, and if they won't change, then you have to stop being around them. He hasn't spoken to her since, but I'm sure it's coming. She's left him at least 25 voicemails since then, but he hasn't called her back. She started calling our landline and leaving messages that say, "If you get this, insert dear husband's name, and someone doesn't erase this before you hear it, please call me." Anyways, dear husband still hasn't called her back, and I really don't know when or if he will. In the meantime, I'm stress-free and not even worrying about her. I'm enjoying my mother-in-law free holiday. Ah man, what an annoying woman. I mean, sure, you have all the right in the world to not like your daughter-in-law, but to beg your son the day of his wedding not to go through with it and then call the next morning to see if he still wanted to be married? I mean, come on, that's taking it too far. This woman has issues. She's just driving the people that she loves away. She already ruined one of her son's marriages and is well on her way to ruining the other two. And this one is staying strong because the son has a spine and, decided to go no contact with her because of her meddling and controlling ways. Stories like these make me curious and make me wonder, what do people that have this sort of mindset actually expect to gain? So just for the sake of argument, what does she want? So let's say she breaks up all of her son's marriages. Does she think that they're gonna love her more now because she's the only woman in their life? That's her endgame? That's just nuts. Anyways, that's just my opinion, and I'm gonna leave it there. So, let's move on to the next and final story. My mother-in-law would call all the time with nosy and intrusive questions, and also drop in anytime she felt like it. She still, to this day, doesn't think that she was being intrusive. She thinks it's my fault. She doesn't do it anymore, but it took too much time and energy to get her to stop. My husband wouldn't say anything to her because he didn't want to hurt her precious feelings. I said, what about my right to some privacy? Throughout the last 4 years, I have hurt her feelings on 2 separate occasions with emails I've sent her telling her she was too nosy and intrusive. She wouldn't get the repeated hints I dropped, so I felt I had no other choice. If my husband had said something, it could have been avoided. Over the course of 2 years, I had given her repeated hints that she chose to ignore, that I didn't like unexpected visitors. I had also asked her on a few occasions to call first. The way I feel is that when someone wants company, they'll invite you over to their home. I was taught to respect a person's privacy by visiting when you're invited. This is the rule I follow also. Since she drove by our house every day on the way home from work, she apparently thought she should, and did, have an open invitation. Every time there was a family function, she would call to see if we were attending. I purposely had my husband inform her if I had plans in order to avoid the interrogation. That wasn't enough information. She would call me a bunch of times to get a hold of me. I wouldn't answer or return the calls to avoid nosy questions such as, "Oh, where are you going?" Or, "What time does it start?" Or, "Are you going with so-and-so?" I thought that you didn't have to inform your parents of your whereabouts after you moved out of their home. Then she started stopping by to get her answers. I learned the pattern and started taking off when I thought she would show up. Sometimes she'd call my husband at work to inquire of my whereabouts. She would say, "Because I've called her 3 times and stopped by 3 times and your wife wasn't home. Where is she?" I felt like I was being stalked. I started hiding my vehicle. Then she would say, "We were going to stop by, but you haven't been home lately." I had wanted to tell her, "Oh, I don't remember asking you to keep track of whether I'm home or not. I also don't remember inviting you." Just because she has a close family doesn't mean I want to be expected to spend all my time being her new best friend. She expected to see us all the time and also go on camping vacations with the family in the summer. It was nice doing things with her at first, but then she came to expect it all the time. We made the mistake of telling her we were getting a pool last summer. Every day she'd call and ask or leave a message which said, "Did you get the pool up yet?" I informed the pool guy not to be surprised if you get any visitors when we're on our bike ride, it'll be my husband's parents. Sure enough, they stopped by, and when no one answered the door, they went in the backyard to find out the pool progress. Get a life! We were home 5 minutes from the bike ride and the phone rang. Guess who? That's what led me to this last fight, and we haven't made up since. I refuse to make up because she'll start doing all the same things all over again, which is what happened the last time we patched things up. She doesn't know the difference between mother-in-law and mother-in-law. I agree with OP. It's really nice to have a close family that, you get together on occasion and share with them. Of course it's nice. But having somebody call you every single day, multiple times a day, to find out where you are, stop uninvited, call your spouse to find out where you are, and all that kind of stuff, it's too much. I'd probably also be ghosting my mother-in-law if I was OP. I would understand the mother-in-law if OP would just be quiet and not say anything that's bothering her. But after 2 emails and apparently 2 fights, the mother-in-law still doesn't get boundaries and space? Well, then it's on her if they're ghosting her. Still sad, but it's on her. What do you guys think? You think mother-in-law is just incapable of taking a hint, or she understands exactly what she's doing? And once again, we've reached the end of the video. If you liked it, go ahead and click like. If you already clicked like and you haven't joined the community, what are you waiting for? Join in, subscribe, hit that bell so you get notified when I put up a new video. And also, don't forget to go to Reddit and join the Lost Genre subreddit to share your stories. Alright, having said all that, I'll see you guys on the next video.